This week I found out that Believe Beauty is going to be leaving Dollar General. They're being discontinued and replaced with e.l.f. And I have to say, I was super sad when I found out. I'm a huge fan of their brand. Everything was under $5 and their foundation was one of my #1 favorites in my collection. So the fact that they didn't make it is really disappointing, and it started me thinking about what other drugstore brands seem to be heading in that same direction. And for today's video, I thought it would be fun to just chat about those brands and speculate whether or not they're gonna make it through 2025. And of course, I'd love to hear your opinion on all of these down in the comments as well. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, so first let's do my Shop My Stash advent calendar for today. It's day 23. Hard to believe, we only have one more day left. And today I got the Flower Beauty Flower Pot Blush in the shade Sweet Pea. This is my favorite and most used shade. And if you guys didn't know, anybody who's just tuning in, I had my son pick out 24 products in my collection to put in these little bags that I got on Amazon, by the way. I get a lot of questions about that. And I had no idea what he filled these bags with, so this was today's pick. And I think he picked this shade because this one is right in the front of the drawer that I have these blushes in, because it's the one that I grabbed the most. So he probably just grabbed the first one that he saw, and I'm glad that he did. It's like the perfect cool tone dusty pink. I wear this one so often, and Flower Beauty is actually one of the brands that I wanted to talk about today because I feel like they're a brand that started off really strong, but I don't know what's been happening to them lately. So just going back to kind of the rise of Flower Beauty, they were launched in 2013 by actress Drew Barrymore. And from the start, their whole mission was to create high quality, cruelty-free products at affordable prices. And I think one of the things that really helped to launch the brand in the first place was Drew Barrymore's involvement, because she gave them instant recognition and credibility, and she has a really approachable, down-to-earth vibe. And I think that resonated with consumers, which made Flower Beauty kind of relatable yet aspirational at the same time. Flower Beauty also earned a reputation for giving us really super high quality makeup at the drugstore. Certain products like their Light Illusion foundation and of course the Flower Pot blushes earned rave reviews from influencers and consumers alike. They're just super high quality, high performing products. Also, they launched at a time when I think cruelty-free makeup was becoming much more important to consumers. Again, this was back in 2013. And so they sort of positioned themselves as different than a lot of the other drugstore brands like L'Oreal and Maybelline and CoverGirl at the time, who wasn't cruelty-free. They are now. But a lot of the big names didn't have that status, and Flower Beauty kind of set themselves apart in that way. And they also just gave us a more luxury aesthetic with the line, where other drugstore brands just had like this really cheap plastic packaging. Flower Beauty just looked a little bit more elevated and a little bit nicer overall. But then over the years, they have had their struggles. The first thing is I feel like they haven't really kept up with the super rapid pace of the beauty industry. They have offered some trendy products overall, like their blush and contour wands that are similar to the Charlotte Tilbury, but I feel like they sort of launched them a little bit late after the hype on those products were already starting to die down. And they don't seem to have the same release schedule like e.l.f. or ColourPop, who are just nonstop releasing products all year. I noticed that Flower tends to do a big release sometime in January at the beginning of the year, and then sometimes they'll release a few things in the summer, but for the most part, they do have very sporadic releases. releases. So by the time those come around, sometimes the trends have already died down a little bit. I think another major issue that's been plaguing them is their decision to pull out of Walmart. Being in Walmart made them so accessible. I feel like almost everybody in the United States has a Walmart somewhere close to them, and they ended up going into Ulta, which I feel like a lot of people do have an Ulta near them too, but not as much as Walmart. And now they're not even in Ulta stores anymore, as far as I know. I don't think they are. They're only online, and they also seemed to do away with their own website as well. The products are listed on there, but you can't buy them. And since then, they have launched in CVS stores, but there's only a select few CVS stores that you can get them in. I know here where I live, there are about 6 CVS's within a 15-mile radius, and only one of those carries the Flower Beauty line, and it's the furthest one from me, and it's not the one that I go to the most often. So while I do think that launching in CVS was a smart move because there are CVS's everywhere, I wish that they had launched in all of them and not just in select stores. Another thing I don't think they're really doing nowadays is leveraging influencers. They used to, because I do remember receiving PR packages from Flower Beauty, and also they used to, like, I even did a sponsored video with them back when I did sponsored videos several years back, but I don't really see influencers opening any PR packages from them anymore. And even Drew herself, she used to be over on their Instagram page using the products, and I haven't seen her doing that in a while. And if I go to their Instagram, it seems like they only post a couple of times a month, whereas most brands, again, like e.l.f. and ColourPop, are posting multiple times per day. So I think their marketing has just slowed down a lot from what they were doing in the beginning. So overall, I think Flower Beauty has the makings of a really standout drugstore brand. They're cruelty-free. They have a celebrity founder. The products are super high quality, but the beauty industry is just so fast-paced right now and so competitive. I think that Flower's just been struggling to maintain the momentum that they had in the beginning. So I think if they focus on stronger marketing and maybe coming up with some more innovative products to really make them stand out from the rest of the brands, we might see them make a comeback. I definitely hope they will because they're one of my favorite drugstore brands. Next up, let's talk about Kokie Cosmetics. This is another brand I haven't really heard a lot about recently, and I think they had a pretty fair bit of hype in the beginning. So when they first launched back in 2015, they were seen as an affordable drugstore brand with professional quality products. I know they kind of started out with their nail polishes, which are actually a really good formula, and then they moved on to a lot more makeup. More recently, they've been doing a little bit of skincare here and there. And I think in the beginning, Kokie did a lot of things right. They had the cute little elephant logo, which I think kind of stood out to people a little bit. Also, they really focused on keeping the products under $10. So they were a much more affordable brand, similar to e.l.f. or Wet n Wild. I think the quality of their products was really good. I remember being obsessed with their lip liners and eyeliners. They're some of the creamiest formulas ever, and now that I'm talking about them, it's actually making me want to go and order some more. And I do remember Kathleen Lights trying their volume and length mascara and that just blowing up. Like, it went viral for a while because she loved it, and that was a really good formula too. I haven't tried it in years, but I do remember really loving that one. Also, in the beginning, Kokie was available at Walmart, which made it really accessible to a lot of people, but in recent years, they decided to pull out of there and go into Rite Aid, which I think was the start of their downfall. So some of the things that they didn't do right, I have to say the number one reason for me is going into Rite Aid. Rite Aid, out of all of the drugstores like Walgreens, CVS, even Target and Walmart, if you count those as drugstores, Rite Aid just isn't as widespread. And in recent years, they've actually shrunken their footprint a lot. I know of some Rite Aids in my area that recently closed and turned into Walgreens. And I believe Rite Aid isn't even in certain parts of the US. So it just made Kokie a lot harder to find for a lot of people. Again, they do have a website. You can order from there. But when it comes to drugstore makeup, I think a lot of the time, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And if you're not seeing it in store, you're not as likely to just pick up something on impulse. You really have to go looking for it if it's online. And that kind of brings me to the next point, which, kind of like Flower Beauty, they're not marketing to influencers nearly as much. They don't seem to have strong campaigns or a strong social media presence at all. And while they do send me PR products once in a while, usually it's just a restock of things that they've had for a long time. They don't really seem to be coming out with anything new. The newest thing that I can remember them launching in the last year was skincare. But as far as I know, they don't even stock their skincare in store. It's something that's only available on their website. And when I go and look at the display at Rite Aid, because I go there for prescriptions and things, when I'm standing online, the Kokie display is right there, and it doesn't look like anything's been touched in years. Like everything looks like it's been sitting there forever. The nail polishes are all separated, like nobody's touched them. So I think it looks sad, to be honest with you. And it just hasn't been updated with any of the newer products. It's all just the same old stuff that's been there forever. So I think they're not really keeping up with their in-store displays either. And just in general, I don't think that they were really great at keeping up with the trends either. Yes, they did their own thing, which in one way I can respect, because I think a lot of companies just tend to jump on trends. But I think there's a way that you can still stay current and trendy without blatantly copying other brands or coming out with dupes. Like if liquid blushes are trendy, you can make your own version without trying to copy someone else's and still stand out a little bit more. But if people are looking for liquid blushes and you don't have one, you only have powder formulas, you're not going to be as popular as some of the other brands that do have what people are searching for. So I think in general, Kokie just has really stayed a very small brand and hasn't really ever gotten to that household name status. I would be really curious to see if they can hold their own in this super competitive beauty market, or if they're slowly going to fade away. It makes me a little nervous for them just because, like I said, when I see the display in Rite Aid, it looks like no one's touched it for a really long time. Both consumers and just any reps from the brand coming out and stocking new products. It's just not happening. So in my mind, this could be a contender for one of the brands that I think we'll see disappear really soon. I hope not. I hope that they can make a comeback, but we'll have to see. Next, I wanted to talk about Rimmel. So Rimmel London has actually been around forever. I didn't realize this, but they were actually founded in the 1830s. They're one of the oldest cosmetic brands in the world. And I think because of that long history, Rimmel has had a lot of credibility and trust with consumers, and that's one of the things that's made them last so long. For a lot of you, it could have been one of the first brands you tried when you were first getting into makeup. I know they weren't always available here in the United States. They were mostly in Europe. But when they first came here, I want to say it was like the late 90s, early 2000s. And I remember them coming into Walmart, and there was a whole bunch of buzz about them in the beauty magazines that I read. And I could not wait to run over to Walmart and try this brand from London. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And they were also always positioned as a super affordable brand. Like again, e.l.f. or Wet n Wild, the products have consistently remained really affordable. Their powder is only a couple of dollars. They have foundations that are like $5 and under. So it's a very accessible brand, super affordable. And also, they have some really iconic products like their Stay Matte powder, the Scandalized mascara. Their lip products are really popular with a lot of people too. So I think these are those hero products I was talking about that people just keep going back and repurchasing over and over again. I think it's really important for brands to have products like that in their collection. Also, Rimmel is accessible all over the world. It's not just located in the United States or just in Europe. So I think they have really wide distribution and it's easy to find them. They were also available in so many different stores, Walmart, Walgreens. I've seen them in Rite Aid as well. And there are probably more stores that I can't even think of. But historically, they've always been very easy to find no matter where you go. And also, I think they've done some really huge marketing campaigns. I'll never forget Kate Moss being the face of Rimmel, or Georgia May Jagger, or Cara Delevingne. It really kind of gave a sense of like edginess and glamour to the brand. So I think they were really successful in getting the word out there. I've seen so much print advertising for them over the years as well. But at the same time, they've definitely struggled with some things. I think one is just a lack of innovation. Again, the beauty industry is just moving so fast at lightning speed. There's so much competition nowadays, and I think they don't introduce new products at the speed that other brands do. So it makes what they do do have feel very outdated. When you look at them, it just doesn't seem new and interesting anymore. I'm just speaking as far as the US. I don't know about over in Europe. They could be a lot more popular there, but I'm just speaking about here. I see very few influencers talk about Rimmel anymore. I know that Emily Noel does, but she's the only one I can think of off the top of my head that consistently talks about them. So I think in general, Rimmel is always going to be a classic brand with a rich, long history, but I think it's clear that they need to evolve a little bit to keep up with the beauty landscape of today. It's hard to say whether they're going to move forward or just kind of fade into the background. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm curious to hear your take on it. I don't see them going away completely, especially if they're still popular in Europe, but I've definitely seen them fading a lot here in the United States. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on whether you think they're going to stick around here or if they might do what Max Factor did and just leave the United States market completely and just stay over in Europe. Another brand I wanted to mention is Joah Beauty. So Joah came onto the scene back in 2018. They're actually owned by the brand Kiss. And if you've ever used fake nails or nail glue, you probably are very familiar with Kiss. And the whole marketing around their brand is that they were supposed to be Korean inspired. And I remember when they first launched, they reached out to me, they sent me a bunch of their products. And from what I remember, I'm not 100% on this, but I could have sworn that the original products that they had in their first launch were actually made in China. And I remember thinking this is really odd because they are putting themselves out there as a Korean brand, but the products aren't even made in Korea. So that kind of gave me a little bit of pause about this line. But then as the years went on, I started trying more products. I noticed that they were made in Korea, and everything in the line is made in Korea now. So I am glad that they did that. And I think, one of the things that really made them stand out in the US market is offering those K-beauty type products, but being accessible right at the drugstore. They had several unique products right off the start, like a cushion foundation, which is something that you really didn't see anywhere else. They also had lip tints and things that are really popular in Korea, but not necessarily here. So they were a unique and really interesting brand. They've also always had an exclusive partnership with CVS, and I think they did start out in select stores like Flower Beauty is doing, but as far as I know, they're in most CVS stores right now. So they definitely seem to expand into more and more stores as people started buying their products. So I think at first having K-beauty options here at the drugstores in the US was a really cool idea. But after a while, there definitely were some things that I think have contributed to them being less and less popular. First off, I think being at CVS is a blessing and a curse because yes, most people do have a CVS near them, but if Joah wasn't in your particular CVS, you weren't likely to come across the brand at all. Also, I think after the initial buzz, they haven't really kept on top of new launches very well. They've been really sporadic and just every once in a while, and they also discontinue products regularly. So favorites that you might have had just disappear and then they come in with new things. And more recently, I've noticed that over on their website, almost everything in their line is being discontinued, and they're coming out with just a very small selection of core products, most of which is actually skincare versus makeup. So it seems like their identity has been a little bit confusing over the years. And not only that, I think just in general, the whole K-beauty inspired kind of made people wonder, are they actually K-beauty or are they just inspired by K-beauty? I think the other issue is that when they first launched back in 2015, it wasn't easy to get K-beauty here. You really had to just order directly from Korea on sites like YesStyle. But now Ulta Beauty has a lot of Korean makeup. Sephora has some. You can get a lot of it on Amazon, which is super easy and convenient. So I think actual K-beauty brands are a lot more accessible than they used to be. And these are the brands that are trendy, that you're seeing talked about all over social media. I know not everybody cares about that, but I think it is really, really important to be able to reach people. To sum it up, I think Joah had the potential to be a major player in the beauty space, but I think they struggled to maintain the momentum that they built early on. The K-beauty inspired roots definitely gave it a unique edge in the beginning, but they failed to evolve, they failed to innovate and come out with new products in a timely manner, and they also haven't expanded beyond CVS, which I personally think is a mistake. So whether they can pivot and stage a comeback remains to be seen. I hope that they can, because there are a lot of their products that I really, really love. I think their BB cream is amazing. Their concealer is so good. I loved their Air Light blushes, which are now being discontinued. I think they had some solid products, but I think they really need to lean into what's trendy in K-beauty right now, and then try to emulate that and come out with these products a little bit faster. Another brand that I'm honestly kind of surprised they're still around is Almay. Almay has been around a long time, since 1931, so they have a long history, and they really made a name for itself as one of the first hypoallergenic makeup brands. They initially positioned themselves as a brand for people who have sensitive or reactive skin, and back then those types of options were really limited, but they do seem to be struggling to keep up with the ever-changing, really competitive beauty market of today. So some of the things they did right, I think, were, again, they really set themselves apart from the other drugstore brands by having these dermatologist-approved formulas that are fragrance-free and not likely to irritate sensitive skin types. So I do like that they set themselves apart in that way. And I think they've just been seen as a really safe, reliable choice that's gentle, non-irritating. They've also been widely available in pretty much every drugstore, so they're super easy to find. And despite not having a huge line of products to choose from, they still do have a full range. They have everything from foundations and concealers to eyeshadow, mascara, blush. I mean, they have the whole range. And personally, I like that they didn't really lean into the whole clean beauty movement. Like, they still talk about being safe and gentle and natural, but they don't tend to use a lot of that marketing jargon that we hear from other brands that can honestly be sort of annoying. So I like that about them. But I think Almay has also made some really huge mistakes. The first one is just outdated branding. I think Almay as a brand, they just look really outdated, and they have tried changing up their packaging a little bit here and there, but it's just bland and kind of boring. I know that they're not a trendy brand and they're not pretending to be, but it's hard to compete with some of the other brands that just look a little bit more sleek and modern. Also, I think the beauty industry thrives on newness, and Almay rarely comes out with new products. Every once in a great while, they'll launch one thing, but they're not coming out with these full collections in January like a lot of the other drugstore brands do. So again, I think consumers just overlook them because it's boring. It's not as interesting as some of the other brands. And another thing I think that's huge is their lack of inclusivity. Almay has really been criticized a lot for their lack of shade ranges, particularly in their complexion products. I think these days being inclusive is kind of a non-negotiable, and they just haven't kept up with other brands in that area either. Not to say that other brands at the drugstore are perfect, but at least a lot of them have expanded their shade ranges over the years, and Almay just, it's like they just don't care. And in general, I think while they did set themselves apart as being clean and more all-natural, there's so many brands like that these days. It really doesn't seem to be something that sets them apart anymore, because there are a lot of different gentle, non-irritating options to choose from. So I think when it comes to Almay, they just have really struggled to modernize the brand and make themselves not trendy, because I'm not saying you have to be, but just to adapt to the modern beauty landscape. Personally, I think they could do with a major refresh and maybe start marketing a little bit more on social media. But I don't know, when I look at their shelf space in the drugstores these days, I feel like it's shrunken from what it used to be. They used to have a much larger section at Target, for example, and now it's just this little skinny, narrow panel with just, you know, a few products on it. So I know people have discussed Almay going down for years, but now I'm actually kind of starting to see the signs of it a little bit more, just in the fact that they're sort of shrinking things and they haven't really come out with anything new in a long time. So I'd love to hear your take on Almay and all of these brands. What do you think? Are any of them going to last through 2025? I always love hearing your thoughts and opinions. Let me know down below. And I want to thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to watch this. I really, really appreciate it. If you have some time and you'd like to watch another video, I'll put something right up here that you could check out next. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care, guys. Bye.